So, since the hype around Wuthering Waves is in full effect with the announcement of the closed beta test 2, the Kuro team also decided to shower us in more of their love. If you want to read it straight from their mouths, they provide a long 22 plus minute long dev talk with the one and only Rexlent, who is one of the pillars of the PGR community in guide creation and being a cool dude. I will leave the link to their official channel in the pinned comment, as well as Rexlent's channel if you are interested in playing Kuro's other game, Punishing Grey Raven, which I highly recommend by the way, new patch just dropped. But if you want a shorter version where you can just listen, here's a shorter outline of everything said in this talk, with some of my thoughts thrown in. Look at the timestamps if you want to just get the info. In any case, let's start, Rovers. They start out by saying the past 9 months they've been taking in players' feedback to improve on criticized points, and that they encourage you to give your feedback both good or bad. One of the first points of contention was the color palette of the world and it looking too dull. From that feedback, they made things generally brighter and more detailed while also still retaining the post-apocalyptic world that is Wuthering Waves. Some of those changes which add or improve in these aspects are changes in details, environment designs, and a new lore or danger-related atmospheric system which cranks things up depending on where the player is and if there's story significance. Examples of these new things we'd see in relation to the environments and world aspects would be the aforementioned atmospheric system, new dungeons that have been added which are tied to character side quests, as well as a completely redesigned Great Tree which offers new challenges to players who love to explore. An important note is how they also mention that a main goal of theirs is to have cross-platform consistency in the graphical quality. This is something I immediately noticed when watching the closed beta test 2 trailer, really showing how they have improved the balancing of both dark and a gritty world while still having things pop in a visually pleasing and artistically unique way special to their world. I hope with their mention of cross-platforms that's a very subtle sign of a console release. That's all speculation though and hasn't been confirmed, but let a rover dream. Next, they talk about the story and how that was criticized pretty harshly. Their decision was to revamp it as a whole, which comes out to about 90% of it being totally changed. This means that things like animations, assets, voice lines and scripts, cinematics, missions, and much more all had to be changed as to accommodate for this feedback that the Wuthering community gave. They said that it was a hard decision and a very stressful one as this was all done in the span of about 6 months. Their idea was to basically work up to the plot, starting with revisions of world building, then characters and their backstories, and finally the main plot line, with side quests also receiving some TLC. Absolute legends. I find this absolutely amazing and shows the passion of the team. The dev team seems to truly care about our experience here in relation to the story and I can't thank them enough for that. They even apologize to us? Y'all are absolute chads. No info on the changes yet, but if PGR is any indication on the direction, I have high hopes. But I think we all must temper them as well as to still give the necessary feedback where it's appropriate. Nonetheless, Kuro, we thank you and we appreciate your efforts all the same. Next up, they talk about characters and their designs and what's coming with them in CBT2. For starters, they mention how they have done some attire changes to existing characters like Yang Yang and our beautiful rovers being adjusted to being more neat and tidy looking. But overall, all characters have been upgraded fully, adding more textures, alterations in body types, and even some other beautiful things. Not only that, but they have also added in more idle animations for each characters. These changes were done as a way of enhancing their personalities, combat experiences across the platforms, and just admiring the beauty of the body. They also outline the new characters that are being added in Ling Yang, the brawler lion dancer, and Genshin, the tea house master martial artist. Genshin specifically is shown to have a unique parry system built into her kit, making her have good offenses and defenses. They lastly mention how they tweaked many of the visuals and effects that happen on characters. Those things include camera movements, camera shake, skill effects, running, extreme evasions or perfect dodges, and parrying, all in an effort to make the combat experience feel buttery smooth like me on a Saturday after dark. This is all great, and if I'm not mistaken, there have been a few videos already outlining the aesthetic changes much better than I can, but I'll leave that search up to you guys since while the changes are nice, they're still subject to change, and I want to see the videos that do the full comparison at the end, not in the interim. Also, Ling Yang looks cute as fuck, but assuming this is the same furry lion character seen in CBT1, I wish they would have kept that design instead. I know that's not a popular opinion since I've seen everyone else say that they like this new design more, But I like the uniqueness that the previous version had since we don't see full furry characters as much anymore. The go-to is usually a tail, ears, and if we're lucky, maybe some paw pad shoes or socks on a mostly human-looking character. But what do you guys think? Genshin also looks super fun for people who like to have parries at all times. She's also very cute, and I love her using her ahoge as a musical grass flute? A hair flute thing, I don't know. Anywho, moving on. This next section is in relation to combat-related things. The first bit consisting of changes to some in-combat problems that have been improved since the last time. One of those things is a less aggressive camera shake that has been tweaked to be much smoother and not as drawing when attacking. They also added more dynamic changes for lens sensitivity during combat for smoothness, and also further optimized basic performance so that frame rates are more stable when fighting. They have also better optimized the lock-on feature so that hopefully the changing in camera angles when in fights aren't as jarring, and also don't malfunction while you're locked on. The impressive thing is that to alleviate the camera issues, they made it so that now each monster and every skill has their own custom camera tracking. This is all great quality of life stuff to make the battles feel cinematically enthralling and smooth, all wonderful changes. Now for the other bit, they talk about in-combat systems, with the first update being on QTEs or the now newly dubbed intro and outro skills. These function as a meter which is filled, and when switching characters it uses said meter to perform their respective intro or outro skill. Their goal with this is to make unique intro or outro skills so teams have continuous combos and flexible team compositions to interact with enemies. The next big system-related thing is the ecosystem, where you can capture enemies and use their abilities to transform into them and aid you in your battles. They outline here that they have improved and changed some of the abilities as this system aligns with their goal of a fluid combo system. As a small side tangent in relation to echoes, they made the gallery different to instead be little figurines now, and even bigger, shiny echoes, or special echoes, where sometimes you'll find rare ones out in the wild as per their different look. If you're worried about that being too much of a pain in the ass, they thought of that too, since if you have already collected that echo, you can go to that location and grind for more echoes in hopes for a special one or to level up the ones you have. Additionally, they made filtering and selecting echoes easier now, which to me looks much easier on the eyes now. Since echoes will play a part in how you interact with enemies and combat, I figured it'd be best to include it with the combat-related section. These are all great changes since nothing is more frustrating when fighting and the camera just wigs out. If there's one thing you all should know about Kuro is that they seem to really care about optimizing the overall player experience, and that can be seen through PGR. I need to see and actually play with the QTE skills and echo system to actually know what it feels like in hand, but I'm glad again that they are listening steadily to player feedback on what needs improvement. The last thing they touch upon is the open world aspects and what improved here. Not a big section, but for big ol' combat nerds, they added in high difficulty bosses for people like us to challenge us. You may need to use a specific echo for it too, and you may even get a rare echo upon beating the boss. But besides that, nothing else more was said other than reiterating that they want this game to be an open world action RPG, with extra focus on adding to the combat. This section was short, so nothing much to say here since it was all pretty straightforward. And that's going to conclude the dev talk itself. Overall, I'm really impressed and happy that they decided to do another one of these. I really appreciate the transparency on what they have been doing all this time, and I imagine we'll get another video like this after the testing phase is over. They seem to really be hunkering down on Wuthering Waves, and I can't wait to see what the final product actually ends up looking like. Keep giving Kuro your feedback, but don't be an asshole about it. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on things, I could do a follow-up where I talk more in depth about what I liked and what I want to see from CBT2. If you want me to talk about anything else, let me know down below. I have a few ideas in store, but it always helps to have more. Thank you for letting me take your time, I appreciate you, and be safe out there, Rovers.